You know, when you learn the secrets to hitting your irons flush, it becomes really easy. You look forward to hitting that mid-iron out of the fairway because you know you're going to hit a good one, and most of your playing partners are going to struggle hitting those shots. Now, I've put together 3 of my all-time best videos that are going to share with you some of those real secrets to hitting crisp irons. Let's go ahead and get started. There is one single mistake that gives all recreational golfers I see extreme inconsistency, chunks and thin shots. I have a little station set up here, and if I do this mistake, I'm going to end up hitting this towel and getting a lot of chunks and thins. There we go. So we can see that would have been a big time chunk. The ball just kind of dribbles out there. It makes you want to take your club and just snap it into 1,000 little pieces. It's so frustrating chunking one. And then once you hit a couple of those chunks, we do the same motion with a little bit of adjustment. We start to stand up out of our posture slightly so we don't hit as much ground, and then we thin one, and it's even worse. Right? So let's talk about how we set this up and how this one drill can give you a ton of consistency. What I've done here is I've rolled a towel in half. I'll just set this on the ground like that. I don't want it to be too high there, so just rolling a thin towel like this. This is kind of the kind of towel they usually put in the back of your golf or in your golf cart when you play around. So this is nice because you can use it the same drill the way I have it set up here at most golf courses. Now I'm going to put this golf ball about 5 to 6 inches in front of that towel. You see, pros are having their club come down. It would miss this towel. My weight is getting to my left. I'm driving some pressure into my left foot and my left knee, and I'm hitting down on this golf ball slightly. So I'd be missing this towel, hitting the ground and the golf ball roughly at the same time, and then the bottom of my divot would be about 4 inches in front of the golf ball. So I kind of mark that with this T. If you're doing this on turf, I should see that exact same thing. I should see missing the towel, hitting the golf ball, a divot from the front of the golf ball all the way up through here, and that would be what the pros are doing. So let's go ahead and take a look at the wrong way to doing this, what I just showed. Most players, what ends up happening is we throw the club to release the club with our arms. This means that the club shaft will be straight up and down at impact, and my arms will be releasing at my body. Now you can tell you're doing this if you tend to stand up out of your posture. So if in the downswing, your hips move toward the golf ball and your upper body goes back away from the golf ball, you're doing this move that I'm talking about. Now the problem with that is that puts your low point slightly behind the golf ball because I'm throwing at the golf ball, my club gets straight up and down just behind the golf ball. So if I imagine this is a hula hoop, this is the arc of my swing. So my club comes down and then goes back up. The low point would be just behind the golf ball like that. Now that low point would be the bottom of your divot. Remember I said pros have the bottom of their divot at this tee up here, 4 inches in front. We're having our divot back here slightly behind the golf ball. So that means that if I hit down and take a divot, this would be the bottom of my divot and it would be a massive chunk like we saw in the last one. I would be hitting this towel when that's happening. Now you say, okay, I don't like chunking it. That's a pain in the butt. I don't want to do that again. So now we start to raise up out of that shot slightly, and all we're doing is pulling our hula hoop higher. So the bottom of the divot is still behind it, but now we're missing the ground, and we're going to thin the ball most times. Now, if I have the ball setting up in a little bit of grass, I can go ahead and make that higher like that. I can hit some grass behind the golf ball and still hit it fairly clean, but the problem is the lie has to be perfect. Anytime we're not on a perfect lie, it's a disaster. So all of these inconsistencies are coming from having that low point behind, and then we adjust it up, we thin it. We adjust it down, we chunk it. Up, down, very inconsistent. I have to get the low point of my swing up here like the pros have it, 4 inches in front of that golf ball. That has to be the low point of my swing. That's exactly what we're going to do in this drill. So step 1, towel rolled over once. It's a thin towel. If you have a thicker towel, just put it in there once, or don't even roll it over. 4 to 6 inches or 5 to 6 inches behind the golf ball. The width of a club head is about 4 inches, most club heads. Now the first move we're going to do here is I'm going to start to shift my weight to the left as I'm still making a backswing. So we're going to do a little practice swing like this. Go to here, and then I want you to feel like you get your weight to the left and then swing down. That looks like this. As I make my backswing, I'm going to go to about right here. I'm going to let my left knee kick out like that. So if I have an arrow shooting out of my knee, it's starting to get some pressure in my left knee, and my left knee is turned out. It doesn't look like this. On my downswing, if my knee's like that, I'm not going to be able to get my weight on the left. I want to kick that leg out to start my downswing, put pressure in the left leg, and then I swing through. So we're going to make a few small swings doing that, and then we're going to build from there. So this is a little half swing, probably only going to hit it barely over 100 yards. Yeah, just a little small swing. It's showing it fast on the screen today. I have no idea why that's happening. I actually had pretty good club head speed there, even though I don't feel like I was swinging very hard. And with a 6-iron, that still went 188 yards. So to me, that felt like I was barely swinging, but because my technique was good, I had a lot of speed, and I was able to contact that ball fairly solidly. That's piece number one. Get the knee out, weight left, then you swing down. I don't want to throw my weight back as I'm swinging down. Weight goes left first, that's the first move. Weight's left, then I make my downswing. Now, piece number two, I'm going to go ahead and let my right leg kick forward. So here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to let my kneecap come toward, imagine there was a ball about a foot in front of the golf ball that I'm hitting. My kneecap goes toward that golf ball. So here's how we're going to do this. Little back swing, shift left. As I swing down, that kneecap goes toward that golf ball, and then I hit the golf ball here. So we're going to practice it like this. Make a little back swing. Get your weight left as your left arm's about parallel with the ground. Pause there. Go to impact and let this knee kick forward like that. Your heel should be coming up off the ground, and that's going to get it to where you can hit down and through this golf ball. Now, if you want to go a little fancier than that, we can get rid of the towel, and we can put down what's called the speed trap by Eyeline Golf. I do get a little commission if you buy, somewhere on this page you'll see a link to this. If you don't have to buy this, just use the towel if you want to. But if you want to get nicer than that, use this speed trap. On here, there's 3 marks, a chipping, a pitching, and a full swing. I actually have found the pros are more along the lines of this red chipping one. So put the golf ball where that red line is there. And now that's at 4 to 6 inches, or 5 to 6 inches behind it is where this plexiglass stands there. So I'm going to go ahead and get my weight left. My knee kicks forward. I'm doing these practice reps to feel where that is. And then I'm letting my arms go long through the shot. So let me go ahead and try to make a little half swing again, doing that drill. There we go. Hit that one fantastic. 200 yards total distance. Again, that's after roll, but man, that felt really solid, and I missed this board. If I start to do this stand up and fall back, you can hear it hit this board. Right, I hit a big thud on there. I actually can see a little bit of area here where it's scuffed up right there just behind the golf ball, and I know my low point is way too far back. Now finally, there's one drill that really brings this home, and I found a lot of people have a tough time getting off that right foot. If you're having your divot too far back, you're oftentimes falling on that right foot, and all the pressure's on the right foot in the downswing. What we're going to do for that is go ahead and bring this towel out again. Again, you can do all this with the towel. You don't even have to have this speed trap here, but it makes it a little bit easier to not have to move the towel around every time. But I'm going to roll this towel up a few times, get it nice and thick like this, and I'm going to put it under the outside of my right toe. So what I'm trying to do here is on my backswing, I'm going to load into that, and then I'm going to push off of that in my downswing. Get my weight going to the left. What I don't want to have happen is if you're looking at my right foot, I don't want to sway to the outside of that, get this reverse pivot, and then I stand up and throw it rather than getting to the left. If I do this motion, it's almost impossible to get back to the left and hit down and through. So this towel under my right foot like that is going to help me to push off of it, and I never roll to the outside of my foot. When I'm setting up like this with this towel, it feels like it's almost impossible that I could hit this plexiglass back there. It feels like I'm going to have to get that divot down and through the golf ball. There we go, and hit that one great. Right down the middle, 210. All right, so everybody wants that divot in front of the golf ball. I got to tell you, I hit that one as good as I can hit one. So 166 yards on the carry with a 9-iron. We'll see that divot started at the golf ball and then came out in front, nice square divot. So why is that so hard? Well, there's actually one small thing that once you tweak this, it makes it way easier. So you see, we've all heard how to get the divot in front. I'm going to spare you tons and tons of instruction because you've already heard all this before. You want to get your weight to shift slightly to the right in the backswing, and then from there, as you're making your transition, get your weight to the left, and then keep your weight left all the way through contact. That gets your low point farther in front, and that gets you to hit this golf ball first and then the ground in front. You see, there's a problem with that though, because when most people do that, they end up doing something like this. Right? I thinned it, I came down way over the top and steep, and I swung to the left. Basically a giant slicing motion. So when you get that divot in front, you're coming in steep to the ground, you're kind of chopping into the turf. It's this glancing, not very solid contact. And then the ball ends up either dribbling across the ground because you hit it thin at the equator of the ball, or it's just way inconsistent. Maybe a 1 out of 10 or 15 feels pretty good. So the key to this is I shift my weight to the front, but I keep my upper body behind the golf ball. So here's what I mean by this. If you look at every single tour player, what you're going to see is that yes, you do see a weight shift to the front. And if I'm using a golf ball here, let me give you a couple really good checkpoints to make sure that you're doing this the right way before I kind of show you the secret to making this work. But I do get a slight weight shift to the right. In my transition, I get my weight to the left. And when I'm coming to contact, I want my right foot coming off the ground, meaning that I'm clearing over to my left side. And I want my left shoulder or my left armpit to be slightly in front of the golf ball. This is putting me in a position to where I can hit the golf ball first and then release down in front. Here's the kicker, here's the key. If I do this and my shoulders are level, meaning that my right shoulder and my left shoulder are slightly the same height, that's going to be this right shoulder coming steeper, kicking the club out here, and it's an over-the-top chop. That's the bad result that we just talked about and saw on the screen. Here's what I want to do. I want to do that exact same motion. Weight shifts to the left, right foot comes up off the ground, my hips and my body are clearing out of the way, just like we've all heard. My left armpit is slightly in front of the golf ball, everything identical to what we said before, but I'm going to have my shoulders tilted, or what's called right side bend, to where there's a solid 15 degrees of tilt here. Now what that does is that puts me in a position to where I'm behind the golf ball. I'm coming from the inside now, so this club, instead of kicking over to the right and being steep with my shoulders level, all of a sudden I tuck those shoulders, I'm getting the club from the inside, I'm coming in nice and level with the ground rather than chopping down into it. So let's go ahead and try that again. A little weight shift to the left, everything opens up, armpit in front, and then from there, tilt the shoulders about 15 degrees to the right. That puts you in a position where you can come from the inside like we just talked about. Now once we feel that, we're just going to recreate that same thing, and that allows me to get my weight left, still hit that draw that's inside out. If you don't do that, it's just impossible to hit that draw, and it just kind of stinks when the contact isn't as good as you'd like. Now there's a great device, and the one that I used here earlier that I call the DIVOT board, and this thing is fantastic because it gives you immediate feedback. You know, if I start to fall back and hit back here, it immediately shows up. If I get my weight shifting to the left and in front of the golf ball, it immediately shows up. But a great thing about this too is that it helps you to identify where your path is going. So if I get that level shoulders over the top, my divot looks something like that. Yes, it's in front of the golf ball, but you can see that it's going way to the left like an over-the-top slice. If I have this divot board set up square and I get my weight left, but I tilt my shoulders, now all of a sudden I can get that divot nice and square as I'm still getting the divot in front of the golf ball. So you don't have to have one of these. You can just, there's a bunch of things you can do. Either draw a line on the driving range and set your golf ball on it and read your divots. You can do lots of things that are going to do the same thing this divot board's doing. This is just way more convenient and way easier. So if you want one of these, I'll put a link down below in the description. You'll get the best deal you can get anywhere. You're going to get from that link, so you don't have to search all over the internet trying to find the best deal. This is the cheapest price you're going to get it anywhere. And it helps us out too because we get a few bucks every time you buy one from that link. Again, you don't have to buy from that link. You don't have to have this device. I just love it because it makes things way easier. Now, if you're going to play great golf, there's one thing that daggone sure has to happen every single time. You got to swing down on a descending blow, hit the golf ball first, and then take a divot in front of the golf ball. If you want to know if you're doing this right, simply put a tee about 4 inches behind your golf ball roughly. If the grass is taller, it may need to be a little bit more than that. But I should be able to swing, miss that tee, hit the golf ball and take a divot in front very easily. There we go. So we can see I missed the tee. Nice clean shot. Hit it great. 157 yards with a 9-iron. I'm pretty daggone happy with that. So how do we make that happen? Well, the first tip, and probably what you've heard time and time again, is you got to get your weight left. This can be very misleading. Yes, with all great players, your weight is going to shift to your left foot. You are going to open your hips, which is going to help to push the hands in front a little bit, help you to get that divot in front. You're going to have what's called shaft lean, meaning that this club shaft, instead of being straight up and down, it's leaning forward. That helps you to hit the ball and then release that and hit the turf in front of the golf ball. All those things are true, but a lot of times when people hear that they need to get their weight left, what ends up happening is their upper body goes to the left too, meaning your nose and your sternum also go to the left. That's a no-no. If you do that, you're going to come down over the top. As you get your upper body to the left, you're going to be able to swing more to the left. It's steeper. You definitely don't want to do that. You're also going to be so far in front of the golf ball, you're going to feel like you have to flip just to keep from slamming the club down into the ground and chunking it while you're doing that. Or if you had shaft lean, you just kind of swing over top of it and hit way up here. So even though you get your weight to the left, the secret to this is you still need to keep your nose behind the golf ball. And let's try this out here. I want you to go ahead and set up to this golf ball. And what we're going to do here is we're going to take our left foot to where it's resting on the ground. And I'm going to feel like my head then turns behind the golf ball. So yes, my weight is on my left foot, but my upper body is angled back. Now that's a bit of an exaggeration. If you do this, you're going to hit shots a little bit too much from the inside typically. Just like that one's going to draw back a little bit. It's going to be tough to slice one from that position. So if you get your weight left, right foot resting on the ground, and you just go ahead and put your head behind the golf ball, now you'll see there's this angle with my upper body. That's going to tend to get me a little too much from the inside, exaggerating it, which is a good thing at first, and I'm going to tend to hit a lot of big draws. Once you've done that a couple times though, that exaggeration, go back and do that with your real swing, and it makes things a lot easier. So I'm going to have the same sensation here. My weight goes to the left. Everything is over this left foot. My right heel starts to come off the ground a little bit, but my nose is slightly behind the golf ball. In fact, if you look at every single player on the PGA Tour, when they hit a shot, their nose is going to be behind the golf ball without fail. Doesn't matter what shot they're hitting, as far as they're going to go left with their weight, they're always going to keep their nose behind the ball. And that just makes it a heck of a lot easier to be really consistent. Now, the second piece of this is, even if you do get your weight left, if I start to throw the club, it's going to make it ground out early. So if you imagine I have this big angle of lag in my right wrist, I keep that angle coming through, I have the shaft lean, then the club releases out here, the divot is going to be in front of the golf ball. If I start to cast from the top and throw this club out, you can see how the club gets much farther from my body and it wants to ground out farther behind the golf ball. So the trick here is to have this right wrist angled back, and it's a tossing motion. So if I grab a golf ball here, the sensation I want to feel is I get my weight to the left. So let's imagine I was going to stand with my feet this way, but I'm going to toss a golf ball toward my target. I'm going to get my weight to the left, a little shift. I'm going to open my body, and then from here, I'm going to have my right wrist angled back like that, and I'm not going to release my wrist until after contact. So my wrist is doing this motion. It is releasing, but I feel like it's happening after contact with the golf ball. So I'm here, right wrist angle back, and then I simply toss it toward the target. So I'm not holding on to this angle. I'm letting it go, but I'm letting it go up here. That's actually one thing we call a straight line release, meaning that your wrist with all tour players actually does release about 45 degrees in front. So that letting go motion is happening about 45 degrees in front. So toss a few golf balls, get used to the weight going left, get used to your body opening up. Those are all great things that you're having in the golf swing. If you can keep your nose behind the golf ball as you're doing that, that would be the perfect motion. And then once you have that, you're just recreating that same tossing motion, almost like the club is stuck to the golf ball and your right hand is the club face, and you're not going to let that go until after impact. That'll really help you to be a lot more consistent. All right, so those are all great, but one problem that most players are going to have is that they're going to struggle to square up the club face. You see, with that right wrist angled back, notice what happens here. If I angle that right wrist back, look how it opens the club face unless I know the right way to square it like the pros do. So if you've been taught to roll the hands over each other to square the club face, it's going to cause problems. It's what I call the anti-roll method. This is the solution to that. If you've been trying to square the club face your entire life by rolling your forearms, then you need to learn this, or you need to see this video because I got some awesome information for you. I'm going to play a preview of it here in just 1 second. All you need to do is go ahead and click the card that pops up on your screen. If you don't see that card that's on your screen, just go down to the link below in the description and you'll get instant access to that video there too. So I can't wait to show you the anti-roll method. Let's get started right now. Here's the bottom line. If you've been taught to roll the club in the early downswing, that causes the shaft to get steep. And that steep club causes all your problems. It causes you to hit it way behind the big hitters and way inconsistent with your quality of strikes. So you're in the tall grass and the trees and the hazards all day long. Now the great news is this. There's really only 2 pieces that you need to know to fix all these problems. The first one is we need to learn the proper way to square up the club face. Instead of rolling the forearms and getting steep, there's another way that the pros do this. Once you learn this right way to square up the club face, then you can shallow out from the inside and everything starts to fit together. Now I'm going to teach you this right now in what I call the anti-roll method. You may also hear this called the motorcycle move or the tour twist, but let's walk through exactly how to do that. Now what I want you to do is go ahead and go kind of in the last parallel in the downswing. So here I want my hips to go ahead and be opening up. I want my club to be parallel with the ground, and I want my hands to be in front of my right thigh. Now, when I take my grip, you're going to notice that when I do this, the club face is basically straight up and down. So if I'm looking at it from this angle, you'll see the face is straight up and down, and my logo of my glove is pointed out in front of me. Now from there,